This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by Freaking.com. Mayor Guinta invited me up to his office for the interview. So an interview, first of all, just to talk to you about the spending cap. What are your thoughts on the plan to try and get a spending cap on the ballot in November in Manchester?
Well, I certainly hope that it is on the ballot. It's something that I've supported in the past, and I'm going to continue to support it because I think that it's important for elected officials to know what their community believes in terms of the amount of spending that should be imposed on an annual basis through the budget process. I personally believe that people in Manchester and other communities are not in a position to afford high tax hikes. The spending cap, I think, is reasonable in the sense that it takes the CPI plus a population growth and limits the spending increase to that amount. Now, that being said, I think we've got to do everything we can to not just limit increases, but try to reform government, make it more efficient, more effective. We've been able to do that in the city, and we've actually been able to cut spending. But there are going to be times when future mayors or other boards of aldermen feel that excessive spending is justified, and that needs to be controlled. And the only way you can do that is to ensure that the people have an opportunity to voice their opinion. So I'm supporting the initiative being on the ballot. I hope other communities beyond just the chartered communities are able to put warrant articles on their ballots as well, because we need to send a firm message that we have to live within our means. Government should be limited, it should be effective, it should be efficient, and it should always be mindful of people's ability to pay for the services that are being provided.
Now, within the Liberty community in New Hampshire, you have a pretty good reputation in terms of someone who's trying to keep the budget under control, but there have been a lot of waves, a lot of upset with regard to your handling of the issue with the state rep, who voted in favor of marijuana and is also sort of a city employee. Well, how do you respond to that concern that libertarians have?
Well, first of all, I don't think libertarians necessarily feel 16-year-old kids or 15-year-old kids should have the right to smoke pot. When I speak with libertarians, their issue is with adults. So I think this issue is very different. The concern, and I believe, first of all, that everyone has a right to express their opinion, whether we agree with it or not. The First Amendment is something that I think most people would agree is sacrosanct. You don't want to limit free speech. I also share the belief and view that government should be limited, and that government shouldn't be focused on people's personal and private decisions. That being said, we had an individual who was employed, paid for by taxpayer money for the Manchester School District, was the face of the school district, spent time with kids, and was advocating something which he has every right to do that was in direct conflict with his role and responsibility employed by the Manchester School District. That's what I was concerned about, the message he was sending to children here in Manchester. And I think that regardless of where you stand on adult use of marijuana, I think we probably all can agree generally that children don't necessarily need to be making adult decisions. And I think that viewpoint is probably agreeable to the libertarian point of view. The challenge I think we have, and we have to sort of acknowledge in a city our size, is that there are there are a lot of environmental challenges that kids face. And we want to make sure kids are making good decisions for themselves, productive decisions. And I want kids to have the appropriate amount of information when they make decisions. But they are children for a reason. They are, someone who's under the age of 18 does not today have the same rights and appreciate the same rights that an adult has, and there's a reason for that. So I think it's important to make that distinction, and also understand that, and again, I don't meet libertarians who are trying to put drugs in the hands of children. Again, they're talking about adults and making adult decisions. This piece of legislation was not geared toward adults by any stretch of the means. It was specifically written for kids under the age of 18.
Well, now, are you saying that the appropriate way to deal with kids under the age of 18 who have this, have a gram or a quarter of an ounce of pot, the appropriate way to deal with them is to throw them in jail?
No, I'm not saying that either. What I'm saying is that an employee of a school district who is a public person, who is responsible, for programs with kids, who is the face of the school district, needs to understand that he or she, whoever that individual is, has certain responsibilities to their employer. And, advocating for something at one level that is in direct contrast to your role and responsibility to your employer is an issue for the employer to deal with and to be concerned with. I think any representative has a right to express their opinion through voting or through the First Amendment. But let's also realize there is a consequence, to those things if you have an employer that employs you specifically to deal with drug use within the school district, to try to promote different behavioral patterns for children. So I think there's a distinction between the two, and again, most people I talk to, libertarians included, want to be responsible people who recognize the distinctions between an adult and a child, and that there are different levels of responsibility that adults have that the children just don't possess. But I don't think the answer is to throw kids in jail per se. I think that and there are
isn't that all the law said, though, is that they wouldn't go to jail on the first offense?
Well, the law allowed the bill allowed a student, a high school student, a middle school student, to have up to 14 joints of marijuana without going to jail. And in my opinion, if state legislators want to debate that issue, they're very free to debate the issue. The issue that I was faced with as a mayor is that an employee of the school district, who is the face of the school district, who is the PR person, who's working with kids each and every day, became a public advocate for that, and that was in direct contrast to the role and responsibility he had as an employee of the school district. So I really do look at the issues very separately.
Are you a liberty activist willing to be on the front line against socialism? FreeKeene.com would like you to consider moving here to Keene. While Keene may have the largest number of liberty-oriented media outlets in the entire state of New Hampshire, there's still a need for more activists. Can you help them? Visit FreeKeene.com to see what's happening. FreeKeene.com hooks you up with all the liberty media in town. Join the Keene Liberty activists and help free the beautiful city of Keene, New Hampshire from the clutches of the government. FreeKeene.com